Okay, I think we can start. So, dear colleagues, dear speakers, and dear guests, I would like to welcome you for this webinar organized by Chamber of Architects of Turkey in collaboration with Union of International Architects to celebrate World Architecture Day. As you may already know, along with United Nations World Habitat Day, first Monday of October is celebrated worldwide by UIA as World Architecture Day. First of all, I would like to celebrate our day on behalf of Chamber of Architects of Turkey, stressing on the right to live in a just and quality space for all and celebrating the architects who contribute to that future. So this year, the topic for the World Architecture Day was set as clean environment for a healthy world. So today, we will try to talk about how we, architects, can contribute to a healthy and sustainable future. For this, I would like to thank our distinguished speakers for giving us the opportunity to hear about their practice, research, and thoughts about this important topic. As we are going through difficult times in terms of pandemic, climate change, economic crisis, and inequalities these create, we have to focus on what architects can do to reverse the consequences of these ongoing problems. We believe that architects are not responsible of these global problems, but they can be of help to create innovative solutions. For instance, architecture can be of help to resolve health issues arise in cities and health problems that buildings create, and also overcome inequalities while resolving architectural problems to build up a much more inclusive future. Of course, with a lot of support from governments, decision makers, and policy makers. So today, we will host two important speakers about these topics. This webinar will be in English. There will be a Turkish translation, Turkish simultaneous translation, and also we will have a live broadcast in both Turkish and English languages. So I would like to introduce our speakers to you. We have very distinguished speakers today who will open up these issues of health, climate change, and the role of the architects. Our first speaker is Natalie Mossin. Natalie is a specialist in innovation in construction with a strong focus on sustainable development in the built environment. She is head of institute at the Royal Danish Academy, Institute of Architecture and Technology. She is past president of the Danish Association of Architects, and currently she is the vice president of the Union of International Architects. So through teaching, research, and advocacy, Natalie's work focuses on architecture's contribution to sustainable development in both its humane and environmental aspects. Today, Natalie will talk about architecture's contribution to a healthy world through the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I have to say that we are so lucky today to have Natalie as a presenter, not only because of the wonderful book that she created with the UIA Sustainable Development Goals Commission, that I think she will be share with us, but because also she's leading the organization committee of UIA Copenhagen 2023, which has a very important topic, which is sustainable futures, leave no one behind. So I will not go into details. I think Natalie will open up this subject. So thank you, Natalie, for being with us today. Our second speaker is Emeritus Professor Fani Vavili. Fani is teaching at the School of Architecture in Aristotle University in Thessaloniki, and of course other universities, and she is practicing architectural design since 1975. She is the chairwoman of UIA Greek Section, member of UIA Council, executive member of UIA Public Health Group, and co-founder of UPRA, vice president of International Fair of Thessaloniki, member of the National Library of Greece, and the Greek Women Network about gender equality and opportunities in research and technological development in the European research area. And also she is a representative for science and technology of Greek Ministry of Development. So we are today very honored to host Fani as she has great knowledge and experience in health issues, both in buildings and in cities. So she will give a lecture today on healthy cities in climate change era. As you may already know, UIA General Assembly declared the year 2023 as the year of design for health. So a couple of hours ago in the UIA webinar, an important question was raised. Are architects health professionals? So the answer is, I think yes. I don't know, maybe Fani will answer that, but it was said in the webinar that everything we touch is related with health. So I'm looking forward to learn from Fani, whose work also expands the works of the UIA Public Health Group. So if it is appropriate with everyone, we can start with Natalie and continue with Fani. I assume Natalie will stress on the architecture's role and Fani will open up the issues regarding the cities. So I would like to inform you that first we hear from our speakers, then we will have time for questions and answers. If you have questions, please write them in the chat so that I can direct them to our speakers at the end of the presentation. So Natalie, the floor is yours, and thank you so much for contributing our webinar.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for opening up this very important topic. It will be a challenge to cover as much as we would like within the next hour, but let's do our best. I will share screen, and then please tell me if you see presentation. No, not yet. Presentation mode now. Thank you very much.
We see. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. Well, architecture has a lot to contribute, and I'll try to speak about that through the lens of the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But briefly, I'll just start with the goals themselves. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals represent the aspirations of all the people of the United Nations, of the whole globe, for a more sustainable future. The goals define the challenges we need to address in order to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. They address the global problems we face, such as poverty, inequality, climate, environmental degradation, prosperity, peace, justice, and health. They are deeply interconnected, and to leave no one behind, the world must move significantly towards each goal by 2030. And I think a very important part of understanding those 17 goals in all their complexity is exactly that they bring together environmental and humane concerns. We need to solve those together. We cannot solve one without and leaving the other one to be solved afterwards. It comes hand in hand. And I would be a bit more harsh than you were, Ayşen, and say that architecture and the built environment is a part of current problems, because there is a lot of energy consumption, a big CO2 footprint, a lot of waste associated with the building environment. But certainly, architecture is vital also to the solutions we need in order to accomplish the goals. The built environment architecture, that is how we organize the world around us, and we have to organize the world around us to be humanely appropriate and to be within the bounds of what the planet can carry. We have done these guidebooks, an architecture guide to the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals, Volume 1 and 2, to illustrate that there is a contribution through architecture. And in those books, we have looked at realized projects to show it and to start a discussion about how architecture can contribute. This is from Volume 2. And as you see in this very nice map, there are solutions. All the projects in the guidebooks are realized projects. And there are projects all over the world already making a difference, already contributing to the movement towards reaching each and every one of the goals. The projects are each eminent. This is, again, from Volume 2. They're not the final or only answer to how we reach the Sustainable Development Goals, but they can inspire us to continue the discussion in our own practice with our own peers, to look at a goal and say, to reach this aspiration, here are some examples of an architectural impact, of a contribution to reaching that goal. what could our project do? What could we do this place and this community to contribute? And then we can together move forward, because we need more ideas, and we need each idea to be specific to its place and its people. And just before I go to be more specific on the health, just to say that if you then look across all those cases we found, there are some key findings. And one of them, and you probably have to read the books yourself to see if you agree on that, but one of them is, yes, the built environment architecture truly does interact with all the 17 SDGs. It's not enough that we are interested in one of the goals. We have to be interested in all of them, and we have to see our own contribution towards all of them. Another key finding is that we can reach for the goals regardless of where we are from, where we work in the building industry, and what budget we're working on. And I'll get back to that in one of the cases I'll show you in a minute. Another finding is that there's no one scale, form, or material that answers this complex question of sustainable development and architecture. There are many different scales, forms, and materials to work with within those new practices, those more sustainable futures that we are reaching for. And also that certainly we need collaboration. When you look across the projects, what you can see is that this is people working together. It's architects, but it's architects with community. It's architects with the client. It's architects with NGOs, with great engineers. It's reaching out and bringing what we have to the table, but also taking on the table all those other contributions that we need to truly move the world in a more sustainable direction. The books are free to find on the internet. They are PDF format. You can find them on the UIA homepage, but you can also find them elsewhere. And I think we'll post a link in the chat, especially since that I know that within the time limits of this event, I'll not make it through a case for each of the 17 goals. So you'll have to, if you're interested, carry on looking into these discussions afterwards. And I hope you'll do that. But to move to the specific focus of today, looking at the goals through the lens of health. As I mentioned, something that's very special and very important to notice about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals is exactly that they combine, so to speak, the red and the green goals. They combine the humane and the environmental. And the ethical principles of the human rights run deeply through the goals, as does a deep knowledge of the emergency concerning planetary boundaries. A healthy world is a world where all the goals are reached, where ecosystems are protected and restored, but also one where human health in both a preventive and curative sense is protected and restored too. This is on display in some of the cases I have pulled out, especially for this occasion, but it's also been on display in so many ways in the last couple of years. I hope you have seen it around you, because with the pandemic happening, nobody knew what was happening. It unfolded with such speed around all of us, and yet right away you could see the built environment response. You could see how a response was possible through architecture, from little things such as reorganization of flows within a building to very poetic special interventions like the one I'm showing here, which is Alabama Cross, a pop-up church in Bogota, making it possible to go to church even under pandemic conditions. I think that's something that maybe we'll get back to in the discussion, but I think that's something we should contemplate and think about, because there's no doubt that the pandemic has not been good for our collective, as a world, our collective ambition to strive towards the goals. The pandemic has moved people into poverty, has pushed people under the limit of hunger. There are so many bad effects of what we have seen happening, but we have also seen that there is hope in how we can respond and how we can create a frame for better solutions through architecture. So that's for us still to learn from, and it's still going on, but it's something to add to those cases that I'll now go into. So going to some of the goals, the first of all the goals, and I'm sure you will all agree that there's a reason this is goal number 1. We need to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Architecture itself cannot lift people out of poverty, but the built environment can affect the impact of poverty on people by providing access to affordable housing, sanitation, educational institutions, health facilities, and so on. We really have something to do in how poverty affects people. Here, the case I want to show you is Empowerment Shack housing project from Cape Town. I think many of you maybe know it. It's a very well published and interesting project. It's in the planning scale, so maybe Fani will get back to some of the aspects we're seeing here. But it's a project that's dealing with the big challenges of informal settlements and the risk to health that is experienced by people living in these conditions. The project has many aspects and is working both on property rights, on communal planning tools, and on a number of issues, such as ability to continue to work on households, on the individual slots as you get more resource or your family change. But there are also some basic things in place here that has to do simply with big health risks that were in this community before. It's the risk of fire, and it's a risk associated with no proper sanitation. In this development, the yellow firewall separating each plot and a transportational route for fire vehicles is creating a big difference in how potential fires would affect the community, and putting sanitation in place is reducing illnesses and children's risk of dying early from really preventable diseases related to sanitation. I'll move to and again, it's just brief introductions, and I hope you will continue these discussions yourself, but move to goal number 2, zero hunger. In the built environment, we can contribute to securing food supplies through planning, landscape, and building design that protect existing ecosystems and prioritize the preservation and expansion of areas for food production. And this can also happen in dense areas with little resource. The example here are micro gardening in the Cox's Bazar of Bangladesh. It's a very this is really a difficult place to live. The refugees are cramped together in very little areas and are living solely on dry food supplies from NGOs and UN agencies. These micro gardens are not a big thing. Some of them, this is one of the big ones on this image, some of them are much smaller, but by reusing the sacks that the dried foods come in and by organizing little garden areas, also including the roofs of some of the tents, it's been possible to supplement household incomes, to use the, supplement household nutrition, use the skills of the refugees who came from farming villages, also a better shading of these very simple tents, and in the end, again, a contribution to health, because fresh foods are very important, and what we have access to eat is very important, of course, for health. And I'll just move quickly on to of course, goal number 3, good health and well-being. Of course, this goal is super important for what we're talking about today, but it really, again, health, as you also started saying, it really links to all aspects, and you can find it everywhere, really, in the goals and in architecture. Architecture plays a crucial part in creating a built environment that supports good health and well-being. And of course, the way the UN defines the goal, there's a strong focus on mothers and newborns, and that's a big challenge. And that's really an area where we need to create better conditions, and where architecture and architectural frame around maternity clinics is hugely important. But there are many aspects to this, and it, again, as I'm coming back to throughout this presentation, we can find work to do in all countries, in all kinds of areas where we work as architects. There is something to do here. So the example here is on the Star Homes project of Tanzania. Here, researchers and doctors are working with a number of very simple architectural design features. It's ventilation, it's again sanitation, it's a level of where the bed is placed related to where the mosquitoes fly, and all these things can significantly reduce the top 3 health risks for small children mortality in this rural area. It's really a project that deserves a longer introduction, but what is so amazing is that this is not advanced technology. This is not high tech in any way. These are simple, basic architectural design features that can make a huge difference. And I'll move to goal number 4, quality education, because obviously, and schools and educational spaces are a crucial part of our investment in the future. And what I'll dive into here is the aspect of movement, because in school you get habits that will last you for a long life. Hopefully you get habits of learning. You get also social habits of how to interact in a good way with your peers. But it's also really crucial to get habits of exercise and movement, and schools can help to create those habits and that kind of an active lifestyle for kids that they can then take with them many years into the future. So creating good habits, good spaces, also for movement and for exercise, is an important part of schools, even if they are urban schools or schools in cramped quarters. And now I'm looking at the clock, because we are already well into the time. So I'll just I'd like to mention this one also, gender equality, and just moves, because it's linked to the other one, just moves straight to this playground in Denmark. This is because together with the findings that kids, the habits they get in school, they take with them through life. Research also shows that many times under current cultural conditions, girls are not as active in the breaks as boys. The boys will run to the soccer field. Maybe in the future, the girls and boys will do that with equal interest. But currently, studies find that many girls prefer more narrative plays and more intimate areas for their play, and they end up sitting inside and not being active. And that has long-lasting effect, because these habits, they last a lifetime. So this is an example of a landscape project trying to create a schoolyard of more varied spaces that can inspire different kinds of play in an active sense. And the research after the completion has shown a big increase in the level of exercise for the girls. I think, of course, we need to remember, like with other projects, that this is not architecture alone. This is, of course, these girls themselves taking action, but it's also their teachers who are underbuilding an interest, and their surroundings encouraging active play, of course. And then, of course, clean water and sanitation. This cannot be stressed enough how important sanitation is for health. I think we have all washed our hands a lot during the Corona pandemic, and we have also, I think all of us maybe thought of people who did not have access to that kind of preventive measure. We really need to think about how to to create proper sanitary conditions for everyone. The example here is that toilets and baths for a school in Vietnam. It's a non-profit project. The architects here both have a commercial practice, and then they have an arm of a non-profit projects like this one, where they go to the countryside and in this case helped a school that did not have any toilets or bath facility to create a cheap and I think beautiful facility. This has a huge impact on both humane and environmental factors. The teachers and the children can now wash their hands. They have a it's a huge improvement of the health conditions, and for the environment, it's a big benefit that solid waste is not dumped in nature, which certainly we need to avoid if we want to preserve green areas. So doing something like this is not, I would like to say to those listening that for me, this is a star architect of the future. Doing projects like that, and not just once, but again, while you have a daily life and ordinary, so to speak, commissions, had to have the energy to reach out, and these architects do it in collaboration with researchers, also from Vietnam, to do this for your community and to create something like this at a very low cost and a fairly quick building process. I think that's where we can find a lot of inspiration. And then since time is running out, I will move past the next goals and go to the last goal, goal 17. So I'll just, and I would love to talk on all of them, but the wonderful thing about the goals is that they're there for us to explore and discuss at any time, not just today. But if you study the goals, you will notice that goal number 17 is of a different sort. The first 16 address different important areas of work, but the 17th goal addresses the process for that work, that we need the partnerships. And I think that when the leaders of the world decided on the goals, they knew that they could not reach for them themselves. They needed the help of professionals like architects, of civil society, of citizens everywhere, because changing the world in a more sustainable direction is not just done by decree. It's done by hard work and little incremental changes, all the places where we work and act. When we look at the built environment, when we look at architecture, every home, building and settlement is built by many hands. And we need to work together, just as I mentioned in the beginning, to really reach for the goals. And I would like to conclude by showing this wonderful project. Sigurban Architects have been part of creating a non-profit that responds to, together with partners, responds to natural disasters, to create beautiful, again, fast to build, small scale housing units. And this is really, I think, where we both see how much architecture matters and what we can do. Because if you have no home at all, your risk, your health is at an immense risk. Having no home at all will shorten your lifespan significantly and expose you to all kinds of health challenges. But having a home, you have a chance to rebuild, to reconstruct your communities, and to create the society that we are striving for. When the Sigurban architects and the group they're working with, when they are able to do something like this in a disaster area where homes have been wiped away, it's the difference between no society in a sense and the first manifestation of a rebuilding of society. These houses are the beginning of a sustainable next chapter for people who have would otherwise have been left with nothing. So I'll finish with this case, and thank you for the word.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for this wonderful, inspirational speech and also this wonderful book that collects different kinds of roles of the architects trying to build a sustainable future. So that's a really a good guideline for architects worldwide. So thank you for this work. I have a couple of questions, but I will keep it at the end. So I would like to give the floor to Fani to make her speech, and then we will have a good time to chat over the subjects. Thank you, Fani. Fani, can you open your microphone?
Κλειστό. Τώρα ξανακάνεις έτσι. Αυτό ήταν η τέτοια. Αυτό. Είσαι οκ. Σήμερα από την αρχή πήγαινε πίσω.
Hello, everybody. I thank Ayşen and the Turkish Chamber of Architects for the invitation. It is a honor. Starting this presentation in the context of this year World Architecture Day, Clean Environment for a Healthy World, I looked at the dictionary to find out the several meanings of the word clean of the title. It includes meanings such as not dirty, sanitized, organized, or tiled. This presentation is an attempt to discuss what is a healthy city in the context of a well-organized city frame. I will try to raise issues for reconsideration, reminding successes and failures. I will touch on issues to bring to the counter discussion some of them. You will watch in parallel with my sayings my PowerPoint so you can read and hear what I'm saying. I discussed shortly the city. For more than a year now, we are discussing and rethinking of our cities. The last years, the climate change started to make so obvious to all, even to the skeptical ones, the disasters all around the planet. The pandemic has resulted a severe disruption of city functions. Historical experience shows that crises favor leaps, shocks, new beginnings, startups, commitments, but fortunately and hopefully, societies and their systems have mechanisms to rectify and rehabilitate. Too many questions have aroused. Is it necessary to reshape our cities, to redesign them? Which cities and city centers and how? So let us think of our cities in an effort to shape their future from the perspective of the pandemic, climate change, etc., in a different alternative way, having in mind that the cities we live in are not the same all over the world. They vary greatly. The city presents the evolution and composition of human civilization. Cities and their centers, since their creation, are important to society. People gather there for their social relationship, contacts, dinner, etc. Also to develop science and culture to improve their productivity and their lives. They are so important that gods, protectors of cities, are included in religions, as for example, Athena in Greek ancient religion for the city of Athens. Aristotle considered them to be the par excellence political place. For Rousseau, it was the place where citizens would gather to protect themselves from state power. Even Max Weber, one of the most important sociologists of the early 20th century, wrote that cities have been a place of civic freedom and action since the end of the Dark Ages. But what do we think today, at the beginning of the third decade of the 21st century, remains the fortress that everyone dreams of? what is certain is that social cohesion is lacking. The cities during the 19th century became a scene of social unrest. Today, the urban population is growing 3 times more than the world population. By the end of the century, more than half of the world's population will live in cities, the phenomenon of vastiphilia. The modern movement developed ideas for the new cities, that most of them fail to create the holistic human environment. And I will give as an example the new Beograd. This new city of Belgrade was based on the principle that people are in their jobs during the day somewhere else, and they return home only to sleep and relax in a quiet and green environment. But people need more than a place to sleep. Today, we are at a point to ask if it is urgent to control the size of the city, I mean the population, or it can be enlarged further to mega cities, mega metropolis, etc. Are the future cities we would like to live in closer to several ideas, archetypes that have developed through time, utopias or dystopias? The British New Town, I give you the example here. It's the Harlow New Town. Are all these a success? Now, what is health? And in this definition and frame, what is a healthy city ensuring the general well-being in cities? The WHO defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So both individual and environmental or social health determine shape individual and population health. In the same line with WHO healthy cities, events and discussions take place for a long time. I will mention some of them. The European Healthy Cities movement of the WHO Healthy Cities project in order to celebrate the 10 years and the launching of phase 3 announced the Athens Declaration for Healthy Cities in 1998. The United Nations member states in 2015 adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. UIA, for the celebration of World Architecture Day 2014, chose the theme Healthy Cities, Happy Cities in order to through events around the world, to spotlight the role of architects and architecture in bringing vitality to urban environments and ensuring well-being for urban dwellers, and also to highlight the impact of responsible practice on the urban environment, landscape, and the entire city. UIA has the prize Friendly Spaces accessible to all, including in the program Architecture for All. It's an international award for architectural projects which promote in the design the universal design. That means that all users without discriminations, quality of life and functionality are welcome. I will refer in a few recent events UIA Public Health Group organized. In this group, I participate for more than 30 years, and you are welcome. You can find information in the UIA site. In 2020, launched the COVID-19 Public Health Group Global Response, an information platform as a part of the UIA COVID-19 Information Hub. This platform allows the public health group members to share the information, news, research, everything related to COVID-19. In March 2021, a public health group held a presentation in which the director, Ray Pentecost, envisioned the future of public health group. You can find it in the site also. In May 2021, the public health group hosted a webinar discussing the challenges of climate change, pandemic, and technologies for design for health. In July, hosted the UIA annual seminar in conjunction with Rio UIA World Congress. Many presentations and posters. In the same period, in July 21, Public Health Group requested the UIA to make a commitment to public health and dedicated 2022 as UIA the Year of Design for Health. You are welcome to submit your ideas and your proposals to UIA Public Health Group in celebrating that year. Navigating, now I continue in the previous conversation, navigating through information, applications and examples, declaration, etc., the question remains, is a healthy city a continuous demand? Is it a process or an outcome? What are the parameters that must be present in order to achieve a healthy city, regardless its current situation? Going through the utopias or dystopias, WHO definitions I presented before, I have chosen certain factors that are the importance of history and the cultural heritage of the citizens, the basic needs of all city dwellers, the quality of the physical and the built environment together with sustainable ecosystem, the level of public health and healthcare services accessible to all, the citizen participation in decision-making, include education, employment, and working conditions. Cities have higher population and infrastructure densities, leading to higher levels of noise and air pollution, potential overcrowding, urban heat islands, and greater stress. Thus, urban areas can pose a higher risk to personal, physical, and mental well-being. Investing in the people who make up our cities for designing them. Thus, a healthy city is defined by a process, not an outcome. And any city can be a healthy city, regardless of its current health status. How can architects design and build healthy spaces, facilities, homes, and urban landscapes that will create, enhance happiness, health, and quality of life for city dwellers? I try to identify parameters for planning and designing a healthy city through some examples of healthier cities, and I have chosen the example of the best cities in Europe that supports the WHO goals for the healthiest cities. I showed you the cities before in another slide. So going through these 10 healthiest cities, I selected some elements that have direct connection to design, which are the beautiful landscapes and surroundings, since the obesity ratio is very low. The best gyms they have in Tallinn, for example, tourist attractions and canals to great lifestyle and historical sites, sophisticated restaurants and bars, great universities and green spaces and fantastic museums, lively nightlife, the availability of essentials like housing, food, and transport, a very compact size, a city of tolerance and diversity. And the question of the size of the city arises again. In our area, Turkey and Greece and the Balkans and other parts of the world, almost all the inhabitants knew the others because they live in small neighborhoods, and they are referring at the city center, which was at walking distance. A dense network of protective and developing relationships for daily security, support, assistance, etc. It is noticeable that during the pandemic, everything was relatively simpler in the provincial Greek cities, and I imagine in Turkey also and other cities. Today, the size of the cities has disrupted all these necessary daily relationships. Alienation of people is what we all experience. Can the cities of the future become alive and sustainable again? This discussion has started a long time ago. I have to remind, I make a break here to say that I included these examples I show you now in order to touch some subjects that are very well known to you, but are important. I have to remind that it is observed that in the cities that are constantly growing, there are not enough sports facilities, and in the rural areas, there are no gathering spaces for young people. They move to urban centers where there is a variety of social activities. But these very spaces are the preconditions for the creation, development, and strengthening of social cohesion. Elite green here near, car park, several parks, playgrounds, an empty plot, an alley became important and necessary. In the big urban centers in Greece and similar cities, the open spaces between the multi-story residential buildings and other small plots can be turned to pocket parks, small places to sit in a green spot. There are already examples from cities such as Barcelona, Vienna, Copenhagen, Paris, in which simple redesigns enhance social meeting places have interesting results. For all of us, is it also possible to discuss about megalopolis or pademopolis or metapolis or whatever name we give as the new answers for a sustainable regeneration of a multi-centric city? Or all is after form follows health? Through the pandemic, we've observed and live a contradiction. Global population has to follow the same specific measures. At the same time, the society of solidarity, social cohesion, cultural events, etc., do not go hand in hand with keeping distances, wearing masks, inclusion, etc. So the resilience of societies is tested. The importance of public spaces and public infrastructure emerged. Staying at home, is this the answer for our lives, our somatic and mental health? I mention only a new tool that has added to help us. That is the emerging field of environmental neuroscience that is devoted to study the impact of social and physical environments or on brain processes and behavior. The field paints a different image of how cities impact on health and well-being, thus providing a new scientific layer of understanding that could help us. Some closing comments in conclusion. Good architecture design focuses on the architect's obligation to design a healthy, sustainable environment through an ethical professional practice in the fields of energy, construction, and materials. It includes the whole city as a wider whole and concerns the planet in terms of quality of air, water, etc. By what means can architects give life to cities, infuse them with the necessary energy, dynamics, ensure their viability, predict and cure, resolve disorders, and support their harmonious development? We, the architects, urban planners, economists, politicians, are responsible for designing places that improve health and well-being. But still, is utopia that Thomas More started 5 years ago and other examples I shown to you before a dream or a reality today? Is the welfare and well-being, the happiness of the citizen still a dream of the humans or a possibility? I included here that we have to make politicians to understand and help us in this. And reading the article, A Revolutionary Who Destroyed More Than She Built, written for Margaret Thatcher, what has left is that housing has a blind spot and we're paying the price now. You know about the lady. And also, on the other hand, US President Barack Obama preached the prize to Eduardo Moura. He said that he overcome the boundaries of his art, doing so in a way that serves the public good, making the world a better place. Concluding my presentation, I am saying that starting navigating in this subject, which is huge and multidisciplinary, it is important to mention among early conceptions of the ideal city as set forth by Plato, Aristotle, St. Augustine, and Thomas Aquinas, the words of the Greek philosopher Plato that the citizen should be interested in the public matters, and it is in his in his nature to participate. The same says today, young girl, the citizen has to be present in the planning and design in the everyday use of the public space. And I finish my presentation with Hannibal saying 2000 years ago, if there is no road, either you will discover it or you will build a new one. We are at the crossroad today to discover the new road. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fani, for this wonderful speech, which ended up in a very brilliant spot, I think. So looking towards the future, what are our resources, what to move on, and how to move on. So thank you very much. Now, I think we can have a short time for questions and answers. We will be finishing in 8 minutes. We have one question directed to Natalie. I can read it so that the other speakers or the live session can hear. So, Natalie, Polat asks, how does you evaluate architectural education in terms of today's subject? What are your advices for professors towards raising more conscious future architects? It was particularly interesting that Ms. Mossin describing how she considers star architecture. If she can answer this question on the basis, I would appreciate. Thank you for this important organization, and thanks to speakers for sharing their knowledge and ideas.
I'll try my best. At the Royal Danish Academy, already back in 2016, we decided to commit all candidate students to work with the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals in all projects. We don't limit. There's a lot of freedom in that. You can decide your focus. You can decide whether you address all goals or a single goal or what you want to try to achieve. But we do ask all students in all projects to actually consider what's the contribution here? How is this helping us move towards the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, towards the 2030 agenda? And I think that to be able to embark on that in your projects, you need to start to have those discussions before you design your project. You have to discuss the goals. You have to discuss both the humane and environmental aspects as a running conversation, so that you don't design as you would normally do and then look towards the goals. The way our professors try to support that is not one thing, it's many different things. But of course, one thing is the reader pointing, and I think Fani pointed to a lot of good sources in her presentation, pointing out good sources that are relevant for a specific project or studio or semester. Also, one thing that we really do a lot, because this is also a new practice that we need to develop together. All the answers are not out there. You cannot just copy-paste existing practice, because we are moving towards a new practice together at the same time, both students and practitioners. So one thing we also do a lot in different ways across different programs is to do field work, to move to a specific site, discuss what are the needs here, to sort of look for the problem and be humble in looking for the problem, and then trying to discuss and make prototypes and solutions, and also to work with your hands, because in practice as architects, we often work on digital tools and in an abstract way, and we have to do that. That's our there's a lot of our roles that has to happen like that. But if you have that, if you have the understanding of what is a piece of wood, what is thatch, what is seaweed, what is mud, then it becomes easier when you design, not to design out of white cardboard, because that's what you have in your hands, but to think about real sustainable materials, about possible future design solutions to solve the foundation, the corner, the window, rather than copy paste from what's already out there in the market. So it's a long discussion, but my advice to professors and students would be discuss these subjects. Do it all the time. Do it before you design. And for professors, allow students to go out in real specific context, talk to people, and meet materials in a very direct, even sensual or physical way.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Maybe we can add one of the things that you stressed on, the collaboration. So these design issues comes without that collaboration, right? The real problems comes without that collaboration. So maybe architects' role in a future world is to find that the problem that exists in collaboration with the society and with the maybe governance, and then create architectural solutions out of that local problem. So these examples are very important in terms to underline maybe that future role of the architect. So thank you very much. So I think maybe I can, not a question, but I want to clarify something related with the Fani's presentation, which gave so many information to us. And what she underlined was also very important. She said that healthy city is not an outcome, it's not a product. So it is a process. Can you open up this a little bit more? Because that's so important, because we see healthy cities as a quality cities, quality of life occurs in those cities, and we see it as a frozen maybe outcome. But how we can approach this as a process? So so we as designers approach the architecture and city as a frozen thing. So, but you've of course pointed out that it is a process. It's going on. It's changing with the contribution of the people. So, how to maybe open up this subject furthermore when we close up this panel, and also stress on your important maybe saying that form follows health. Maybe combining with that. Can you open up this a little bit more?
I can say shortly that this is a dynamic process. Cities are dynamic places as human beings also. And we cannot look at them as a frozen object. I give an example. There are countries in the world where public sanitation is not regular. It's something that some countries try to establish even today. That does not happen in Europe, for example. But that's why I say that this is a dynamic process, and we can achieve step by step all the parameters that I included in my short research of the healthy cities. If you look at the internet, because now this is the only source we have, it's difficult to visit libraries, you can find 10 or 20 healthy cities according to WHO. These cities are so advanced comparing with others that they don't discuss about sanitation, public sanitation. They discuss of other parameters as I presented to you. I presented these because I think that basic needs for a healthy city is something out of the question. And as I was watching the webinar before, as you did, Ayşen, and everything has to do with health, as Ray said. And also, someone else said that all ministers should see themselves as ministers of health. It has to be with transportation also. What kind of transportation? It seems that it is not directly to health, but it is. I don't know if I have answered to your question. And But
thank you so much.
What I wanted to say. Thank you also.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You also you gave the link to the UIA's webinar. Maybe our audience we didn't have chance to watch it. So it's an important link. I think Natalie has something to say. Yes, Natalie.
I would like also after Natalie to add something.
Okay.
Maybe you first, Fani.
I want to say again that students and the audience and our colleagues around the world are very much welcome in the events. In next year, events celebrated Designs for Healthier Worlds and globally, that they are welcome to submit their ideas or to organize webinars and whatever they have in their mind, and they have to contact me or because I belong in the public health group, or the directors they are in the Texas A&M now.
So I noticed in the chat that the EMEC is asking why should we trust the UN, and I just want to say that nobody are the sole owners of these agendas. No poverty, gender equality, climate action, peace and justice, life on land. These are our needs as citizens, as people, as architects. I think that the UN did a great thing by adopting the 17 goals, because they do encompass big challenges we need to reach. But even if there was no UN, those challenges are there and we need to address them. So I would say to EMEC, trust yourself in looking at the goals and finding out where do you want to work for a more sustainable future. You don't have to do it with any specific government or intergovernmental actors, as long as you do it in your practice as an architect.
Can I say something more on that?
Of course.
In the previous webinar UIA organized, a colleague, an architect, presented a health center or a small hospital in Ghana. The design and the result is far away from the star architecture we watched in the architectural magazine all these last years. It was a simple construction with simple materials, very well designed, with interior courtyards. Fantastic, congratulations. And I think this is important architecture, and we must not be impressed anymore of the star architects of the world. They are.
You're totally right.
Of course, but we have to solve urgent problems that people that don't have the resources cannot confront.
Exactly. So we have to be inclusive. So that theme is very important. We have to be inclusive in driving a future, driving a sustainable futures. So thank you very much. I think there's one more question. If you have 5 minutes more, then we will close our seminar. One last question coming from John is that he's saying, we know that there was a big biodiversity loss in the history of Europe in its development. After all, what solutions should we architecturally take for keeping biodiversity in developing cities, for example, in African cities, like Professor Mossin's examples? So I think this is directed to
both of us. Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
If I have to speak first, Natalie, thank you. I must say that there is not one answer. Biodiversity is a so complex and multidisciplinary subject that ecologists and other special fields are after that. So we cannot say what we're going to do in Europe is the same for Africa or South Asia, etc., etc. We have to concentrate on the special characteristics of climate, soil, trees, and plantation, etc. That is my answer quickly.
I would say that with the size of the human population and the amount of built area, certainly we need nature networks in everywhere and in the cities. So we have to think of cities as something that's growing and living, and where natural systems can exist too. That can then become very practical. It can be that you don't ever again think of creating a for show lawn. Yes, we can have play fields, and we can have different kinds of cut greenery, but not just for show. Then make it grow, allow what you plant to harbor life. We can think of when we do a housing complex, we can think about, is it possible here somehow to supplement food sources by growing something? Is it possible to allow shading to create a better climate in streets? What about the roofs? Can we plant food? Can we plant to allow for insect life? So it can become very practical, but the big overarching thing that I think both Fani and I are talking about is that grown environments, they have to have a place in our cities and basically in all built environments, because we don't have enough of a planet to have so big areas without living things being allowed to be there. And that it can take many forms, but it has to have a place in our built environments. They have to be both grown and built.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you so much, Natalie. That maybe connects to a last question that has arrived a couple of moments ago. So one of our guests says that continuing the production of cities in gigantic dimensions, devoid of any human scale, isn't it to attacked by using architecture as a tool against basic human rights? So I'm answering this is yes. So today maybe we underline that what is important is that the local, the design problems coming from that local conditions. So that's what's important, and where the future of architecture is collaborating with that local community and local situations. So the innovative solutions arises from those examples. So that's also important. So what Metin Karadağ says, that gigantic, maybe in his terms, devoid of human scale architectural solutions, which are coming from another perspective. Yes, that's the role that architecture plays, maybe to not a pleasant feature. So we're also trying to question that in this webinar. So do you have any additional comments? If not, we will close the webinar. I think no. Okay, so I would like to once again celebrate our World Architecture Day, and thank you first of all for our speakers for sharing their time with us, and also for our participants who were with us throughout the webinar, and to the Chamber of Architects for organizing this, and UIA for collaborating with us, distributing our webinar worldwide. And also we have helpers here. We thank them also, Melis and Çağda. They helped us in technical problems. And also I thank translators for this huge amount of work that they did. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful World Architecture Day. Hope to see you in another time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.